Kim Melin with Edina Realty.
And I'm Madeline Shock.
We are excited to be sharing some time today with Scott Teese with Edina Realty Insurance. We've had a lot of conversation in the last few months circling around homeowners insurance, coverage, roofs. We can buy the house, we can't insure the house. Those sorts of questions we're receiving as realtors right now, and we thought we'd go to the source and answer some of those questions for us and for you as the consumer. Scott, I know we've had a lot of conversations about roof ages and how do we cover it? Who do we go to? I know that you guys have a lot of solutions and options for our clients. We are seeing buyers that are purchasing homes, going through the inspection period, only to find out that the inspector didn't call anything on the roof looked fine, but then all of a sudden we're hearing from homeowners insurance companies that they're unable to insure it.
Yes, roofs right now are a driving factor as to if a buyer can get insurance or not, and specifically the age of the roof. It's not, sometimes it's condition, but most of the time it's age. A lot of insurance companies have just given us a pretty clear statement of if a roof is 10 years old or older than 10 years old, older than 15 years old sometimes, they will not write insurance on it. Now, this is not every insurance company, but a lot of them out there now have limitations for coverage and eligibility if the roof is too old. So this is really what we're asking home buyers right now, and really sellers too, to be prepared for, is know how old that roof is to the best of your ability. Sometimes they know because they put it on themselves. Sometimes they don't because they bought a home 2 years ago and they're reselling it now, and they just don't know that information. So the best thing for buyers and sellers in terms of insurance right now is to know how old that roof is.
And Madeline and I as realtors, we do a lot of problem solving with our clients in terms of, okay, we know that the roof is 18 years old. We know it's going to become an issue. Then we start to talk about, does it need to be replaced? If it's replaced, how do we handle that? Who pays for it? When does it get done? And we were chatting with Scott a little bit about that. Let's say the roof needs to be redone. We've got a seller that doesn't want to redo the roof. They say it's just fine. There's no leaking. It's fine. We know that the insurance company wants that roof to be replaced. Then we start talking about the buyer taking on that financial responsibility, doing it post-closing, and then getting an exception on the policy to have that done after closing.
Yeah, so there are a few ways we can get around this challenge, right? So both sellers and buyers really should be prepared to have this as part of their conversations during negotiations. It's possible that if the roof is too old, that the buyer would simply not be able to find insurance that either qualifies them for the mortgage or simply no coverage for the roof at all. So they need to be prepared, again, both buyers and sellers, to maybe have that come up in the transaction and the conversations there around it, to say, okay, maybe we do need to put a roof on in order to get this transaction closed. If it's the seller, then they can obviously do it as they own the home. But a lot of times we are seeing buyers understanding and deciding to put a new roof on themselves right after closing happens. And of those insurance companies that I was talking about where they are not allowing old roofs, many of them are perfectly fine with the fact that, okay, we'll insure the house as long as this roof is going on, let's say 30 to 60 days after closing. So lenders are looking more closely at the type of coverage provided on these insurance policies now. They're even asking us for language to tell them exactly how the roof is covered. There's really one of two ways. Replacement cost is you'll get a brand new roof. Actual cash value is you'll get the depreciated value. So if the roof is 15 years old and there's a claim, you would get, the new cost minus 15 years of depreciation. Nobody really wants that for their roof, right? Everybody, especially the way insurance has been done in this state for decades, is you get a brand new roof on your house. Well, that's what got the insurance industry into trouble in the last few years, is they're paying for a brand new roof for almost everybody that had storm damage.
This is new to the industry as well, this new 10 to 15 year mark.
Absolutely.
For aging.
In the last 2 to 3 years, they've really decided, hey, we have to figure out a way to stop the bleeding because we're paying out too much on claims. We've lost a lot of money. I'm not defending the insurance companies. It's just the reality of it. And so they've decided the age of the roof is what dictates whether we want to insure a home or not.
And I think as agents, it's important for us to prep our sellers and our buyers for these types of conversations from point A. I recently had a situation with some buyers. We went into a showing, and before we even stepped foot in the property, I had looked through the seller's disclosures, talked to the agent, and realized the roof was over at least 15 years. So I think that's really important, is you're preparing these buyers, you know, before you fall in love with this home.
Understand.
Yeah.
These are some really real conversations we have to
Yep.
have. You have to be prepared to possibly have to pay for a new roof. Like you said.
It would be sad for a transaction after all that hard work to fall through because insurance couldn't be found. We are running into that sometimes, certainly more than we did in the past, but the reality is that these insurance quotes, they just take more time. And buyers tend to treat insurance like it's not the most important thing, because it's really not. There are other important things you have to do. But when it's done a week before closing, 10 days before closing, then they realize, oh, it's going to take us longer to get a quote because my agent, you know, the people that I work with, we have to call underwriting, we have to submit pictures of the home, that sort of thing. All of that review takes time. So we can find solutions, but they do take longer to find.
Right.
And really the message is to both sellers and buyers, if the roof on the home is old, 15 years or older, it's not impossible to find insurance. There are solutions out there. There are certain insurance companies who will write a policy based on the condition of the roof as opposed to the age of it. But that takes more time to find out that information and get those quotes done. So it's really important for both sellers and buyers to know, let's get that insurance quote process started early so we know what we're up against.
And I have one last little thing I want to ask you about, because I think this is helpful information to sellers and buyers as well. We did discuss, you know, with this transaction, the buyers either paying that deductible for the sellers. But the seller's concern then is, you know, what's going to happen to my overall payment now? Is it going to go up? And how does that work?
Sure, if there's been an agreement for the buyer to pay for the deductible, that is a claim that the seller is making, because the seller owns the home at the time the damage of the storm happened. And so the buyer is not making an insurance claim, it's the seller making it, but the buyer's just paying their deductible. However, that claim does stay on the seller's record.
Okay, and what happens to the seller's payments moving forward then?
They can be affected just depending on how carriers treat a single claim.
Okay.
Some carriers, if you have one claim, your payment's going to go way up. Some don't, just depending on how much was paid out, that sort of thing. So there's no true answer in terms of every company does the same thing, but there is a potential for premiums to increase for that seller down the road based on the type of insurance they're trying to get if they do make that claim.
And in this case, the seller's premium would have gone up, so we decided to settle it with seller credits instead. That made more sense to the seller, made more sense to the buyer, but just something I want to bring up.
And then Scott, correct me if I am wrong. Are you considered a broker?
Broker is a general term for what we do. Yeah, Edina Realty Insurance is an independent agency. So we have multiple insurance companies that we work with. We're trying to add as many of them as quickly as we can. But essentially for buyers in any situation, whether the roof is brand new or old, we will look at all of our companies to try and find the best option for them. Usually for your standard buyer, between 7 and 8 companies that we can really do business with. So yes, we are technically a broker, but yeah, more independent.
The reason I bring that up is obviously it's valuable to work with somebody that has a broad spectrum of opportunities for you as a buyer or a seller for coverage, as opposed to going directly to a one source vendor or supplier. So that's all we have for you today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott, for joining us. It was very helpful.
Yes,
You're welcome.
very helpful and a very confusing topic.
Yeah, glad you could be here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.